You're welcome to another sit down on LM Hub. It's a delight to be here today because today we're going to be taking a little dive into something that is different from what you know us to always talk about, which is the BBN. Today we're going to be talking about something that is actually of value to the education system, like this place, the Rivers State University, and that's because right now students are writing examinations. Exams start today. So students are wondering, there's talk in the street about how they feel about this whole exercise. And so we are going to be talking about how to attempt questions, even what exams are, and why the need to still write exams at this level. But I won't be talking about myself. I have in the studio with me, you know who, the amazing Dr. Sarahchidieberejoe. Dr. Sarah, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
How are you feeling today?
Amazing.
It's great to see you. You look amazing.
You look good too.
Thank you. And today I am so excited that Dr. Sarah is here because I've told you several times that she's a lecturer. So today your lecturer bit that I always say with so much excitement is going to pay off because who else will tell us what we need to know about exams? So Dr. Sarah, let's just get right to it, shall we?
We shall.
Okay, great. Dr. Sarah is not just a lecturer, she's also the team lead of Elan Hub. She's a mediapreneur, she's a lot of stuff, right? But today, for now, you are a lecturer. So
Can I also just say that Bells is a lecturer as well? We work in the same department, we work together all the time, and she's amazing. So even though I'll be answering the questions,
yes,
she'll also chip in every once in a while because they're writing your exam next week, right?
I will be asking.
No, actually, you wrote your exam today.
It started today, yes.
Awesome. So you see, we're both in it.
But we should know our rules. You answer, I ask. Let's not get confused. Okay, but don't worry, it's about to go down. Dr. Sarah, first off, why the need to write exam at this level? At the university level, after having gone through life from nursery, primary, and secondary schools, you write exams every end of term or end of year, as the case may be. And now at the university level, we know that teaching at this stage is different from those of the secondary and the primary and the nursery. But why the need to still put these adult students through this exam process, even at this stage?
Okay, so this is my response. Exams are a test of knowledge.
Okay.
To determine whether at the end of the semester, for instance, students have been paying attention. It's also kind of a gateway to the next level. If you're your first year, you're writing an exam to take you to your second year. As a test of knowledge, we can have the debate on and on whether or not it's effective. But the thing is, we have to just do them. And I think it's also, exams are good for students. It keeps them it gives them an opportunity to go back and study everything they have learned throughout the semester. And the kind of preparation people put in during exams is quite different because you tend to kind of remember when you approach the question, and I know we're going to talk about all of that.
Okay.
But exams serve two purposes: test of knowledge and a gateway to your next level, whether it's the first year, second year, third year, final year, or so on. So that's essentially what exams are. But again, I must emphasize how effective they are in measuring how people do well in life. For example, you can have a student who is an A student because they're able to cram or to remember, they're effective, but practically they're not able to execute those things. So we can have that conversation about how effective they are at the end of the day, but the school has been designed for any particular method, and these methods are kind of traditional. It's difficult to really change or upturn them. Right. So you just have to go with the flow, do the exam, ensure you pass, and then go to the next level.
Wow.
Yes.
As simple as that.
Yes. As simple as that.
Okay, well, I think a lot of people will beg to differ.
Yeah.
When you say it's as simple as that, because that's the whole reason why we're here today to talk about it. Students are a bit jittery about the whole thing because there are trick questions and all kinds of questions, especially questions that have some words in them that seem like you understand these words on a daily basis, you use them, but then when you're seated in a hall and you have to approach questions technically and applying those words and getting the exact meaning that would help you to answer the questions accurately, it becomes a problem. It seems like you don't know it, or it seems like it means something else. So I want you to talk to us a little bit about these words that we see regularly when we're answering these questions and what they mean and what's expected of us. For example, we have regular words like explain, expatiate, illustrate, evaluate, describe. What are these words similar in the context of exams? And if they are not, what are their differences?
Okay, I'll start from the top.
Okay.
So, in life, we go through challenges, and sometimes, for some of us, depending on your background, you want to describe these challenges as tests. And when these challenges appear or do occur, you're not really prepared for them. Nobody tells you, oh, you're going to go through a test tomorrow. But somehow in your mind, you know that that's the journey of life. Some things will happen. And so you have to sub-prepare how you're going to deal with those issues if they do happen to you. But in the context of an exam, especially with a university, you're given time, like 3 months ahead of time, to say you're going to be writing the exam on so-so day. So you have an opportunity to prepare ahead of time. The reason people are tense towards an exam is, first of all, there's the label exam. That alone makes people a little bit jittery already. But there's a way to counter that, and that's called readiness, preparation. And I'm sure you're going to ask me about that, how to study, how to make reading a habit and a lifestyle rather than something you do just to scale a test.
Okay.
So I think that's the foundation, because if you're ready for something, to some extent, I know that of course there's that label exam, and it might not even be you, it might be your environment as in other students and the lecturer or whoever else may impose that kind of fear. But if you're ready, there's always a calmness on the inside. So you're best set to approach questions and just deal with stuff if you're ready. So there's that. They're not talking about how questions are framed, or the kind of words lecturers or teachers use to introduce. They call them, there's something they call them, I can't remember now, but how you just structure your words. Of course, students are required to pay attention because those words are not the same. Right. And you have to be careful how you approach each question. So for instance, when a student is given a question paper during an exam setting, the first thing I would like to advise is to say, what are the instructions? For instance, what questions are compulsory? How many questions am I supposed to answer in all? How much time am I allocated throughout the exam? Because that will determine how much time you allocate to each of the questions. For instance, if you go for an exam and you're supposed to answer 4 questions and you're given 2 hours, it stands to reason that at least you have 30 minutes per question. Okay. And so on and so forth. So students need to have that in the back of their mind. The next thing is to now go into the question and find out which one is compulsory and which is not. Because you want to give the compulsory question, which will probably, in most instances, carry more weight in terms of scores, to dedicate more time. But it doesn't mean you have to start with that one. It's always best to start with the one you understand the most, the one that you consider the easiest. So you get that out of the way, then go back to the ones that are a little bit more difficult. But remember, for the compulsory question, you need to dedicate more time. About the words themselves, when the lecturer says describe, explain, evaluate, illustrate, there are some things that they're looking for. Especially here, what we teach is media communication related, so we're really careful about the kind of words that we use. When, for instance, in the question I say describe, I want to know the features of that element. I want to know the characteristics, what makes that thing be. So it's important that students are able to use words and describe that object or illustrate that situation in a way that if I take away the object, then these words and how you've explained them or shown them will be able to replace effectively. So description means highlight the features. Description means tell me the characteristics of so, and so, if that makes sense. Okay, in terms of explanation, if a lecturer says explain, I think what they're thinking about is the why behind a particular concept or the why of a relationship. So more details. It will be very good for a student who understands to begin by describing the situation and then go on to explain the why of that situation. It's very, very important that you do that because explanation means reason, justification. Why is this the case? If 2 persons have just been engaged in a fight, you want to understand why. Explain the situation for me. So you have to explain the why. And most of the times, lecturers are not asking you to just draw from nowhere. You've been taught the basic principles, the concept, why these things, how they connect. the relationship. So it's to just plug some of those theories, some of those concepts, some of those beliefs, ethics, whatever, plug them in and make it make sense in the real context of life. If someone says, evaluate, they're asking you to highlight the pros and the cons of the situation, but at the same time, also take a position on the subject. Wow. So, because failing to do that will be like, oh, you're just telling us why this thing is good and why it's bad. It's not enough. You have to synthesize, make all of it make sense. And one thing I would like to always emphasize, to score the highest marks, you need to always include examples. Because that will show to the lecturer or most lecturers that you know what you're talking about. You know, examples, really, really important. To illustrate means to graphically display or to show us in a way that it will seem as if we're looking at a picture, to exemplify. So it's very tricky because I know that there are instances where a lecturer might just use words without really paying attention. I'm not going to pretend that everyone knows. But in the real world, what the situation is if you use a particular word, that students pay attention and they're able to know the difference. For instance, there's a very simple one, state. So you just present the facts regarding that issue. If they say list, then you're just listening, you're numbering, and so on and so forth. So at all times, a way for students to escape the complications or whatever is to always include examples. But all of these are quite different from when you're writing an essay type question, because there you may need to incorporate some of these elements in one document. So the lecturer will expect to see an introduction where you hammer out what you're going to do or what you want to explain. Not necessarily explaining or writing the question back at the lecturer, but going ahead to tell us what it is. And then you have like body paragraphs to explain, per paragraph, per point, or per argument. And then you have a conclusion. So it's quite, I say exams are really simple if people prepare, if they pay attention. And then there's one very good trick. If a student shows up in class all through the semester, or for the most part of the semester, because we live in a real world, there are situations that might happen, somebody falls ill and so on, but as much as possible, sure. Most of the times, lecturers are very careful to even leave signposts and leave like markers for you to know the kind of question. When you do your CA, for instance, you begin to understand, if it's the first time you're encountering a lecturer, you begin to understand the kind of possible questions. Is this person analytical? Is this person quite simple? What do they really need? Because, for instance, the lecturer might say describe, but there's also something I call real intelligence, understanding the kind of lecturer that is. What does describe really mean to this lecturer? Is it like describe, or describe means a bit more? Then there are also those situations where students will complain, oh, they want me to use their words, No, it's called real intelligence. Sometimes the lecturer wants to know if you were really present. And so there are some words, there's some examples, there's some illustrations that you include in text and say, oh, I was in class when you said it. But that's not all. You're not supposed to just re-echo everything the lecturer said. You're supposed to go beyond and above. Because it's not just the notes in class, you're supposed to do your own reading. And that's why, go back to the earlier thing I said, reading is a habit, reading is a culture, it sets you apart from everybody else in the context of an exam.
Thank you. You've kind of touched the question I was going to ask, but let's just go into just a little bit. How much time does a student need to put into reading on an average for them to say, yes, I am ready for the exam?
Okay, so it depends on what kind of exam that is. Let's take, for instance, the time that's going on now, semester exams. My advice to students, especially young people, especially in this culture where people don't read as much as they should, is as soon as you head to class the very first day, start that day to draw a personal timetable and start reading from day one. If, for example, you have 7 courses in a particular semester and you dedicate one day for the week, say 2 hours a day to that course, you find out that long before the exam, you're ready, covering so much ground. You even have time to read beyond and above what the lecturer advised or just some of the suggestions. You can read outside the box because you're now comfortable. You know what the conversation is. Towards the exam, all you're doing is just rehearsing. You're just scanning your text because you're already familiar with the pages and what the conversations. You're probably that kind of student who will be able to ask questions. That kind of student who want to find out my feedback from my CA. You know, students are ready like that. I will have a lot of them in university, and then when they write, you're happy because you're not just seeing what you said, you're actually arguing. They're presenting their arguments, they're not just writing for writing's sake. So it depends on the kind of exam. If it's not a semester exam and it's kind of a professional exam or stuff, you want to give yourself enough time, because there's no time that is enough. You need to just know what your strengths are. For instance, in doing your PhD in the UK, they were advised to be able to complete it in, say, 3 to 4 years. You need to dedicate 35 hours reading time, and that's on the average, right? If you don't have your strength in terms of reading and comprehending is difficult, then you need to dedicate more time. So it depends on the kind of student that is. But on the average, you want to give yourself, for a professional exam, at least 3 months of steady preparation, and that means you're going to shelve a lot of social habits away and give yourself time to study. But for our students generally, whether you're on holiday, the semester is on, ensure that you're reading, because you want that thing in your blood. You want it to be part of you. To be able to sit down and study for 7 hours straight is not something that you just acquire in 2 days. You can prepare effectively for life, because everything that we know and need in terms of existing, people have already written about it. If we give ourselves time to study those things, we'll be less confused. So make reading a culture by studying every day.
Thank you. Before we go, real quick, what's your take on writing style when you're answering a question? Do you think that the student should just feel the pages or go straight to the point and hit the nail on the head?
No, feel again. So there are 2 ways to answer the question.
Okay.
So there are different types of lecturers. There are the lecturers who want you to actually feel the page. When they look at it, they're yes, we really live in a real world. There are lecturers like that.
Yes.
So again, real intelligence tells you to, well, feel the page.
Okay.
But in filling the page, you have to be careful. Are you filling it with junk? Or you're actually filling it up with sense?
Right.
Because if it's that kind of lecturer, lecturers usually, we don't have time. There's a lot that we're doing.
Exactly.
So from your first page, from your introduction to say an essay type question, we already know whether you're headed right or wrong. So for a class, say you have about 200 students, right? And then somebody just starts boringly, and you want to bury the main gist at the bottom. Nobody is going to read it, right? And you can't the process to contest whether or not you scaled it or not. Because listen, you know this, when you walk into a class and you're having a conversation with your students, you already know the bright stars.
Right.
In grading them, what you're looking for, does this one even have a clue what we're talking about? Right?
Right.
So in filling it, it's a trick that you have to be careful when you want to apply them. If it's somebody who likes volume, but I wonder what lecturer in this university would like volume.
Right.
I wonder that lecturer. It's really tough. So make your points, answer the questions sufficiently to the best of their ability. Always make it relatable. In the context of media and communication, it's all around us.
Okay.
Draw instances from the things that you see in the world, from radio stations, from TV stations. Draw from programs. Mention the names of presenters. Tell us when the program is aired.
Okay.
You know, if you're talking about a theory, tell us the people, the major players in that particular sector. Who are the main leading scholars, and what have they said?
Right.
It's important that you show that, rather than just writing for writing's sake, because somebody will just this is rubbish and fling it. So yeah, feel it if you need to, but ensure that you're filling it with good sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we've about covered everything.
Yes. If there are questions, they can leave in the comment and we'll respond.
Exactly. So yes, she said it. So if there are more questions that you want Dr. Sarah to answer, she'll be happy to answer them. Just leave them in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video.
Yeah, because there's more content coming your way. And remember, I am Bells. This is us saying, wish you all the very best. My students are writing my exam tomorrow, and look, I know that you guys are going to do well. We've done amazing work already, so I know you already need ease.
Yes, plus how do you listen to this type of video and still feel then?
I mean, if you listen to this, you've already passed.
Exactly. So good luck. I can't wait to see you later after now, because I'm very sure that you are going to do this.
Excellent.
Until next time, thank you, Dr. Sarah.
Thank you, Bells.
We'll see you again.